Hello students, in this video we will be reviewing the lesson 3-5 congruent triangles. Let's begin with the do now. What is the length of the sides of the equilateral triangle? In yesterday's lesson, you reviewed the properties of equilateral triangle. You know that in an equilateral triangle, all the sides will be congruent. That means that they're all going to be having the exactly same length. In order for you to find the length of one of the sides here, all you need to do is select two of the expressions for each one of the sides and set them equal to each other to set up your equation. So for this particular problem, I'm just going to pick 3x plus 6 and 6x minus 3. Since I know that both of these sides are equal to each other, I'll set up my equation by setting these two expressions equal to each other. Notice that for this type of equations, you have x terms on both sides of the equal sign. So what you need to do here is you need to cancel the smallest x term, so in this case it's 3x, by doing the inverse operation. Once you do that, you get 6 equals 3x minus 3, and now your equation is a simple two-step equation in which you have to get rid of the constant first by doing inverse operation. So it says 9 equals 3x, and then get rid of the coefficient by dividing. So you get that x equals 3. Again, the question is not asking us to solve for x and find the x value. It's asking us to find the length of one of the sides. So all that you need to do here is once you know the x value, you need to come back and substitute. And you can substitute into any of these expressions because all the sides are equal. I'm going to choose to come back and substitute into the expression 3x plus 6. So once I do that, I get 3 times 3 is 9 plus 6, and 9 plus 6 will give me 15. So my correct answer is C. All right, the objective for today is students will be able to identify the congruent triangles and write and use congruency statements. Recall from the beginning of geometry that the word congruent means equal or same. Okay, so here I'm giving you two examples. Here at the left, we have two congruent segments. And this is going to indicate, remember this is a symbol for congruency, this is going to indicate that segment AB is going to have the exactly same measure as the segment CD. Notice that for segment, we use the same number of ticks to indicate that those segments have the exactly same length. If we're talking about angles, when two angles have the exactly same measure, we can say that those two angles are going to be congruent. So for this particular example, angle A, the measure of angle A is 115, and the measure of angle B is also 115. So therefore, we can say that angle A is going to be congruent to angle B. That's gonna tell us that both of these angles are congruent because they have the exactly same measure. Similarly, if two triangles are congruent, they will have exactly the same shape and exactly the same size. So I'm going to give you an example here. These two triangles, A, B, C, D, E, F, are going to be congruent. And I can say that my triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Again, congruent triangles mean they have the exactly same shape and they have the exactly same size. All right, let's go ahead and identify congruent parts. two congruent triangles are shown below. Let's label the corresponding parts. So when you have two triangles that are congruent, you're going to understand and identify that corresponding congruent parts are going to be congruent. So notice for this particular problem, angle A is going to be congruent to angle T, since both of these angles have the exactly same number of hooks. Angle A has one hook and angle T has one hook. So we can say for the angles, angle A is going to be congruent to angle T. Similarly, we would do the same thing for angle C and angle S. Both of these angles have exactly two hooks, so we can conclude that angle C is congruent to angle S. And we can also say that angle B will be congruent to angle R. Because think about it. If let's say angle C is 60 and angle A is 60 and angle C is 70. Well, because angle A corresponds to T and these are congruent, then T will be 60 and C corresponds to S, so angle S will be 70. If we're trying to find the missing angle B, we would have to do 70 plus 60. That's going to give us 130. And then recall that in the sum of the three interior angles in a triangle equals 180. So we would do 180 minus 130 to find that missing angle, and we get 50 degrees. So if angle B is 50, then the corresponding angle to angle B will be R, which is also 50. So again, this is our third pair of corresponding congruent angles. Angle B corresponds to angle R, and they are both congruent. Same thing for the sides. In the sides here, we can say that side AB is going to be congruent to side TR, and order does matter, okay? Because both of these have one tick. So again, if I'm saying AB correspond to TR, and if we're saying that both of these sides are congruent, then we know that both of these sides have the exactly same measure. Order does matter here, guys. If I started with A, I know that I got to start with T because A and T were the two angles that were corresponding to each other. All right, let's go ahead and find the next side. BC has two ticks, and RS has two ticks as well. So we're going to say BC is congruent to RS. And then lastly, we're going to say segment AC is congruent to segment TS. Again, order does matter when you're listing the pair of corresponding congruent sides. All right, let's go ahead and continue. Congruency statements. When two triangles are congruent, you can write a congruency statement to represent congruent parts. In a congruency statement, the letters in the name of each triangle are written so that the corresponding parts are written in the same order. Once again, order matters when you're writing that congruency statement. Okay, so the way that I like to do this, guys, is the following. I notice that R has one hook, so I'm going to place a 1 there. E has two hooks, so I'm going to place a 2 there. And D has 3 hooks, so I'm going to place a 3 there. And I'll do the exactly same thing for the second triangle. L has a 1 hook, U has a 2 hooks, and B has 3 hooks. So when I'm trying to write the congruency statement, I'm going to use that same pattern. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I can say that triangle RED is going to be congruent to triangle. I follow the order 1, 2, 3, LUB. Notice angle R is congruent to angle L. Angle E is congruent to angle U because they both have 2 hooks. And angle D is congruent to angle B. So if you want to use that strategy of labeling the angles as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, you may use that in order for you to write the correct congruency statement. So the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 always works, especially whenever you have the angles labeled with the hooks. Now, let's look at the guided practice problems. It says here, use the given congruency statement to identify the congruent angles and the congruent sides. In this particular problem, they're already giving you the congruency statement, okay? So the congruency statement is super important because if we follow the order, then we should be able to determine the congruent, the corresponding congruent angles and the corresponding congruent sides. So let's go ahead and do that. I know that B corresponds to C. So that's my first pair of angles. Angle B is congruent to angle C. Same thing with the second pair of angles. O corresponds to A in the congruency statement. So angle O corresponds to angle A. Same thing, X corresponds to R. So angle X corresponds to angle R. You can use the congruency statement by, like I said previously, labeling as 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Notice that the ones were 1 and C. The twos, sorry about that. The twos were O and A, and the threes were X and R. Now, if we're talking about the sides, we can go the same order, the same way. BO, side BO. So if you want to draw the triangle, you can. I'm going to draw the triangle and I'm going to put here B, O, X. The next one is C, A, R. Once again, we already said that angle B is congruent to angle C, angle O is congruent to angle A, and angle X is congruent to angle R. If I want to write down the corresponding congruent sides, I can follow my diagram, I can follow the order of the numbers, or I can follow the order of the letters in my congruency statement. I'm giving you 3 different options. So I know that BO, side BO is congruent to side CA. And notice that BO is 1, 2, and CA is 1, 2 as well. Okay? The next pair of congruent corresponding sides will be OX. Side OX correspond to side AR. And then the last one is BX correspond to the side CR. All right, it's your turn to do the following problem. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. For this one, if we want to label the angles, we follow the order of the letters, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I use the ones first. So angle S congruent to angle R, angle U congruent to angle A, angle N congruent to angle Y. These were my ones, my twos, my threes. Okay? For the sides, I can do the exactly same thing. SU, without even drawing my triangle, SU is 1, 2, corresponds to RA, 1, 2. I go to 2 to 3, UN corresponds to AY. And SN, 1 to 3, corresponds to RY. Once again, the congruency statement is very, very helpful when trying to come up with the 3 pairs of corresponding congruent angles and the 3 pairs of corresponding congruent sides. If you follow the order, because once again, order matters. Okay? All right. Now let's go ahead and do this problem. It says use the given congruency statement to find the missing measures. So once again, they're asking us to list the angles and they're asking us to list the sides, but then they're adding an extra step and they want us to find the measure of the missing angles and the missing sides. Okay? So what you have to do here is, first than anything, label the corresponding angles. R and H. You can do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I know 1 and H. R and H are going to be congruent. So 1 and 1. Or if you want to use different colors, you can do that as well. Okay, so R corresponds to H. Now we move on with the next letter, which is E and O. So E and O, I'm going to label that with a 2. 2 and 2. And then the last letter, which is D and T. So D and T, I'm going to label those with a 3. So again, you can just use color code, write different colors to indicate which angles are going to be congruent and corresponding to each other. You can just simply use the congruency statement, or you can use the 1, 2, 3 strategy. All right, so I'm gonna start by setting up the congruency statement for my first angle, which is angle R is congruent to angle H. Second angle is angle E, congruent to angle O, and the third angle is angle D, congruent to angle T. I'll do the same thing for the sides. From 1 to 2 is ER, I can put one hook. 1 to 2 is HO, I can put one hook there. From 2 to 3, ED, I can put 2 hooks there. OT, from 2 to 3, I can put 2 hooks there. And then from 3 to 1, DR, I can put 3 hooks in that side. And that I can do this exactly same thing for TH because it's from 3 to 1. 1, 2, 3. So now that I already identified my congruent sides, corresponding congruent sides, I can list them up. So I can say RE is congruent to HO, ED, side ED is congruent to OT, and lastly, side DR is congruent to TH. All right. So again, we have listed all the pairs of corresponding congruent angles and corresponding congruent sides. In order for us to successfully solve for W, notice the W is going to represent my side ED. It's in the expression that represents the side ED. And that side ED is from 2 to 3. And we also said that ED is going to be congruent to OT. So there, you notice that that side OT has the length of 21. So that's your first equation. 3 times 3W minus 2. Again, ED corresponds to OT equals 21. So here we got to distribute. 3 times 3W is 9W. 3 times negative 2 is a negative 6 equals 21. Oh, this is a two-step equation. We're going to go ahead and cancel that constant number. So 9W equals 27. Cancel the coefficient, and W equals 3. All right, we do the exactly same thing in order for us to solve for x. We notice that x represents the angle O, 5x minus 7, and angle O corresponds to angle E, which is equals to 48. So that's going to represent our equation that will help us to solve for x. 5x minus 7 equals 48. This is a simple two-step equation. Get rid of the constant, plus 7. So it says 5x equals 55. Get rid of the coefficient, and x equals 11. All right, now let's go ahead and solve for y. If you're solving for y, notice that y represents the angle D, and angle D corresponds and is congruent to angle T. So here, there's no equation to solve. All that you have to do is say y is equals to 60 degrees. Nothing to solve here. And then lastly, you have the last equation, the last variable to find, which is z. So z is in the expression that represents the side ER or RE, which is going from 1 to 2. And when I look at my second diagram, 1 to 2 is H2O, which is 16. So then we're going to go ahead and set up the equation. Negative 3z plus 4 equals 16. Again, cancel the constant, minus 4. This is negative 3z equals 12. And then divide by the coefficient, and this would give us negative 4. So z equals to negative 4. Once again, we were able to do all of these, solve for each one of those missing variables, because we were able to understand this congruency statement. If you're able to understand this congruency statement, then you can go ahead and identify the corresponding congruent angles and the corresponding congruent sides and set up the correct equations to solve for the missing unknown variable. All right, for your independent practice, you have problems very similar in which you're going to have to find the correct congruency statement based on the ticks and based on the angles. And again, you're going to have to find the missing measure. And then at the end, I'm giving you some review problems. A lot of you guys were asking me if the review problems were for you guys to complete, and the answer is yes. You have to complete these review problems because they're only going to be helping you to prepare for that unit exam and that mid-unit exam that we have. The mid-unit exam is next week. So it's important that you guys start practicing with previous lessons. I hope this video was helpful to you guys. And again, don't forget to complete your independent practice work, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.